Hey guys, and welcome to the Fish Room. I'm Rachel O'Leary and it's time for a species spotlight. This week I thought I would talk about one of the more common critters that people tend to stock in small tanks, but one that I think is totally inappropriate for small tanks, and that's the Otocinclus, or the dwarf suckermouth catfish. Now it is true that they are exceptional algae eaters, but what most people don't realize is that these fish are generally found in enormous schools. We're talking thousands of fish. And they really tend to fail to thrive when kept in smaller numbers. Because of their incredible appetite for algae, it can be really difficult to stock them appropriately in a smaller tank. In fact, I find 10-gallon to be the absolute smallest that I think you should keep them in. So let's take a look and I'll tell you more about them. Now, as I mentioned, these guys are a schooling fish. I have about 100 in this aquarium, and they move constantly in these groups. In the wild, they're found in small to medium-sized streams alongside marginal vegetation, and they literally swim in schools of thousands in the open water. They're found from Colombia to Argentina, and they're just really social fish when housed properly. They're kind of interesting because they have an esophageal gas bladder, which is like an air-filled sac that balloons and allows them to hover throughout the water column, which is a bit different than most other armored catfishes that generally sink. There's more than 17 species of Otocinclus, with the most common being imported being Otocinclus vittatus. They are almost always imported as a finis, but that species is very rarely seen. Now, Otos have been exceptionally popular in the nano hobby forever, and I think it's a real shame because this is a very gregarious fish. They're extremely outgoing. They should be super visible and they should be super active all the time. They graze constantly on algae on all surfaces and are really adorable at just over about 1.5 inches or so. They thrive in planted tanks that have good water quality. They can take a range of temperature from about 72 to 82, and they can take a wide range of pH, but with neutral to soft being ideal. They're often found alongside cories that look very similar, and they have a mimetic relationship, meaning the Otocinclus hang out with the cories because cories have those really sharp pectoral spines with the toxins, so predators tend to avoid the cories and also the Otocinclus that look similar to them because of that. And you'll actually see them behaving a lot like cories too when they're housed properly with this glass climbing behavior and the schooling behavior. And I think that's something that a lot of people just don't get to see because they keep too few together. You know, general rule of thumb is 6 or more, but for this species I really prefer 10 to 15 or more if possible. And because of that, a larger tank is more suitable. It's interesting to note as well that they almost breed like cories too, with groups of males chasing the females, which are wider than the males and slightly larger. And then the females will place the eggs and lay them individually on surfaces like wood or the underside of leaves. Males also have odontodes, which are like little teeth right at their caudal peduncle. And I'll see if I can zoom in on one to show you this, though it might be kind of difficult. Now, I've just dropped some food in this tank because Otocinclus also have this reputation for being difficult to feed. As evidenced by them eating floating pellets at the surface here, that is really not the case. Otocinclus, in my opinion, are often just really shy because they're being housed in too few in numbers. When they're housed in these big groups, they are so visible and so easy to feed, readily taking pellets, both floating and sinking, as well as eating your algae and taking supplemental vegetables. Things like zucchini or blanched spinach are especially good. Now you can see that these guys are just full of energy. They have nice round bellies. And if you're going to pick Otocinclus in your store, you want to watch their behavior. They should be being really outgoing like this. Their stomach should be nice and round, and you would want to choose ones that are actively swimming around the tank and acting like Otos should, which is sort of clownish. I mean, they're absolutely adorable. They have very small dentition, meaning that they're not physically capable of damaging the vast majority of plants, and they really have no interest in eating plants, though they do graze on the surfaces of them. Again, the females are much broader than the males when they're in condition. The males are slightly smaller and thinner and have that patch of like tooth-like structure at the base of their body. You know, these guys have a horrible reputation for being fragile, which I really don't find to be the case at all. Now, I have gained sort of a reputation as an odo whisperer for my successes with these various species, but the reality is if you feed them well right upon import and give them high volume, very clean water, they tend to do very well. I really think the biggest problem with this fish is people keeping them in too small of a tank and in too few of a number. All in all, they are an exceptional algae eater and a very engaging and outgoing fish when housed properly. Thanks for watching. Make sure you stop by my Facebook as well as my website, MsJinx.com, where you can find my upcoming speaking engagements, my current stock list, and information on all things nano. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, or questions, let me know below, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks as always for the donations. It's much appreciated.